Welcome to this episode of Who Gives a Vote, where we discuss all things politics and some other things along the way. All the views expressed in this podcast are personal views and do not reflect the views of any organisation or entity that the participants may be involved with. So let's get started. Well, welcome to this episode of Who Gives a Vote. We have George and Carly with us. George, welcome to Who Gives a Vote.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
It's very exciting, isn't it? And what about you, Carly? Are you happy to be here?
Super excited.
Yeah, you really? There's some really exciting topics we're talking about this week. Yep. So it's about 45 minutes. We're going to talk through a couple of issues. Obviously, the first one is just recapping on the election, which we talked about last week. The Townsville by-election was held and there was a winner. George, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, as expected, Nick DeMeadow got a very strong majority, over 60%. That's a big mandate, with the next closest being the acting mayor, Anne-Marie Greeny, on 13%. So, yeah, that's a very good mandate for him. And then Troy Thompson way back with less than 5%.
And I understand there was some arguments about whether or not all votes had been counted. But when you look at the actual figures, I think from last year, I think there was some contention that it was underrepresented. But I did put in the in our notes here, 2025, you had 102,525, and then in 2004, which was only last year in the proper election, you had 112,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a
Yeah.
Is that a fair amount to be concerned about if you were the Electoral Commission?
Not at all. I would have thought you'd lose that just by making it a postal vote.
Yeah.
That would get lost in the mail, going out. People have moved, and I wouldn't expect to be able to match a postal ballot to a stand-up ballot.
So if you're looking at that, you're pretty comfortable?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would there be a level of apathy there, given that they were going back to the ballot box 18 months later?
I don't think so. I mean, general by-elections, people get very interested in. I wouldn't think it'd be apathy. I would think it is any losses, stuff getting lost in the mail.
Yep. And it's not like you've got it would be different if there was a difference between 100 people. You've got there 62,000, which would be, you'd win that outright, even if there was 112,000 people.
That's right.
Yeah. So it doesn't
I'd be a
really
bit
matter.
worried if Australia Post lost 10,000 votes, though.
Yeah, I don't think it lost. I don't think the ballots went into bins and stuff. I just think people move. People aren't enrolled in the right place. People are on holidays. Yeah.
Absolutely. Any thoughts about the election before we move on to the topic of tonight?
I think it is. I think Townsville's made a pretty good decision there. A very considered decision.
Yep, I think so too. As I said last week, and I thought Nick would win. And the reason I guess I thought he would win is because of his representation through his campaigning, his marketing, his movement around the electorate. But also, I think people really liked the fact that he was willing to take a chance, to take a risk. He actually resigned from a prestigious job and chased the job that he was passionate about, and I think people really respected that.
Yeah, nobody would think he was doing it for the money or for any particular motivation other than wanting to do the job.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a certain amount of the voter as well who's going to go, well, he's very qualified for the position because he's been in state. So.
Yeah, and he resigned for it. He wasn't a case where, and this is something we'll actually talk about with the local government changes or amendments, he actually resigned from his position, which people respect. He wasn't sort of, sometimes you get accused of job hunting if you move from one to the other. So I think that was really good. What about you, Carly, when you look at just those figures again, do you have any issues with the fact that there was 10,000 short from last year?
Not particularly. I really didn't know what to expect in that regard, whether or not people would be, I guess, maybe a bit disgruntled because they're going back to vote, or I really didn't know what to expect, to be honest.
And it does, if you look at the former mayor, Troy Thompson, he got 56% of the vote a year ago, and he's got
46. Yeah. Oh,
so 46. That's what I was saying.
46 on primaries.
Yeah, sorry, 46 on primaries, and then he got 4.93%.
And to actually think of the numbers, to have over 50,000 people cast their ballot for him in 2024, and he's lost, 45,000 of those.
Oh, I guess that's what happens after 8 months if you get suspended and get being investigated by the anti-corruption.
And so did Harry Patel.
He did.
He's the other one who was in both ones. Harry Patel, he was sort of just the guy who ran in 2024 because the two other candidates weren't particularly popular. He managed to get 10% almost when he ran. And this time when there's a ton of candidates, he's down to 2%.
Yeah, and that would make sense if for all the voters, there's about 10% that obviously will vote for anyone but anyone but those two. So from that perspective, you can certainly see there's a lot more candidates 2025, and obviously Harry didn't do as well as he did last time, so he doesn't get a deposit back, does he?
No, he won't. No.
He's got to get, what, 5%?
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Harry. Sorry about that. All right, so...
Better luck next time.
That's right. I guess the big issue we're talking about tonight is something that I think is pretty cool, but most people would think is a little bit boring. George, do you think local government amendments are boring?
Absolutely not. The Local Government Empowering Councils and Other Legislation Amendment is actually quite interesting.
Sexy title. What about you, Carly? Do you think this is exciting?
Well, now I've
stuff?
heard that title.
Yeah.
Can't hold me back.
So there is a bill that's being presented by the current state government to make some substantive and some less sort of, some management changes. So there's minor changes, and I think there's some major changes. What I wanted to do tonight was to go through some of those changes and just identify, one, what they are, what impact, and whether we think it's a good or a bad outcome for the community. So the first one, which is a bit nuanced as well, is the appointment of a senior executive by panel. So this is where, at the moment, the current situation is that the CEO gets to decide on who the executive managers are. So for example, Fraser Coast, are there 4 executive managers?
Directors.
They're directors, yep.
Yeah, so the EMs are the level below. That's
yep.
probably about 20 executive managers. There's 4 directors. Yeah.
Okay, so it's in this case, on this amendment, it's only to elect or to employ or select the directors. Is that right?
Yeah, it'll be down to the director level. Yeah.
So let's put that into terms from a Fraser Coast Regional Council perspective. You've got 4.
Yeah, and we've actually since the Premier made these announcements at the Local Government Association of Queensland Conference. So for a director position, we've just appointed the new director for planning. We incorporated that process.
Even though you didn't have to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the current situation is that the CEO gets to determine who fills those positions. Now it'll be a panel, which includes from my reading of the explanatory notes and also the bill, is that it's a panel including the mayor, the CEO, and also potentially another councillor.
Another councillor, yeah. So typically, if it's somebody, say if it was a water and waste, and that council had a committee, a subcommittee, would be the chairperson of that committee. In a lot of cases, this will be the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the CEO.
Yeah. So that's a significant change, isn't it?
Yeah, I think in practice, most councils already did something very similar to this, though.
Yeah. So you looking at that, Carly, what's your thoughts? Just on the outside looking in, which model seems better to you?
I can't see anything wrong with the changes that have been made. It's probably slightly more transparent. So,
yeah. George, is it fair to say that this amendment has the potential of solving a problem in a council that has conflict within it, as opposed to one that is a healthy, functional council that has an executive and an elected body that are talking and communicating, and the mayor is the head of that body? Is it a case that this is more designed to protect some of those councils that have conflict.
Yeah, and councils, I guess, in councils where there's not complete, where councillors want to be more involved. I noticed that what this actually, in the consultation section of the explanatory notes, it talks about who it's been consulted with, like LGAQ, and one of them is the Local Government Managers Australia, which is like the LGAQ for the CEOs, and where it says, the proposed amendments are generally supported, however, certain stakeholders raise concerns, and this is one of the ones where stakeholders raise concerns. And, it wouldn't have been the LGAQ or anyone else. It would have been the actual managers group that raised concerns about this section.
So for those people who don't know what the LGAQ is.
It's the industry body for local government.
Local Government Association of Queensland,
Yeah.
yep. And they represent the elected body?
Yeah, the elected body. Whereas the LGMAQ, the Local Government Managers Association, that's the one that CEOs are members of. And so I think they were certainly the ones who would have raised concerns about this.
Yeah, yeah. So all in all, it's not a bad outcome.
Not from my perspective. I mean, there are governance issues where, there is case and argument that you could put forward that councillors shouldn't be, that the council should just appoint the CEO and then the CEO appoints the staff. I think this is a better way to go, that the very senior staff should be appointed with the mayor and another councillor on the panel.
So let's roll.
Because they are elected representatives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but let's role play this. So the CEO is responsible for implementing the vision of the elected body,
Yeah.
which is the community. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They have a staff that they employ to implement that vision. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely.
And councillors don't have control over any staff that are underneath the CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless there's a few very, like if they appoint council advisors, there's a few, like
There's a few nuances.
outstanding-
Yeah.
yeah.
What happens when you're in a situation where, forward thinking, there's a CEO in a meeting and the CEO votes to go with one person and doesn't want the person that the collective vote on? Can you see or agree to employ? Can you see some issues there?
Yeah, it would strain relations, but ultimately the council can dismiss the CEO if they want to.
Yeah.
But the way this is set up, the CEO would be outvoted.
Correct.
Yeah.
But then they could say,
Ongoing.
yeah.
Oh no, on appointing a director.
Yeah.
So the panel is the mayor and another councillor
Yeah.
and the CEO. Yeah.
So if there were issues later on, the CEO could rightfully say, well, you
Yeah.
can't measure me on that
Yeah,
because
you did it, yeah.
I advocated for somebody else who would have delivered a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some
Yeah, I can see
complexities.
that happening. Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's move on to one which I can't understand why we need to empower mayors, but there's the empowering mayors. They become the default chair and meeting authority. Can you talk on this, because obviously you are a mayor, and
Yeah, I'm really surprised this has to even be in there.
I actually, when I read it, I thought it was.
Yeah.
I was surprised because didn't it used to be in there?
I'm sure. Yeah, it's one of those. The official spokesman one used to be, and it's not in there anymore. It's very surprising that they felt the need to do this. Yeah.
Yeah. So explain
And I haven't
to us.
even seen this come up as an issue. I mean, there's been the issue in Ipswich and a few other places where the mayor hasn't been able to be the chair of the local disaster management group or other positions. I haven't seen anyone try and say the mayor shouldn't be the chairperson of the. I kind of think they shouldn't be. I think it would be good if the mayor wasn't. Yeah. Like in Parliament you have a speaker. I would love to be at the meeting and not, be, just one of the
Contributors.
Yeah, contributors and the advocates, rather at the same time also having to chair the meeting. You don't have the
You could run for councillor.
Yeah, the Prime Minister doesn't chair Parliament.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true.
And the Lord Mayor of Brisbane doesn't.
So the Lord Mayor doesn't,
No, they would have a
under the Brisbane City Council Act, as opposed, because they're not bound by the LGA.
It's a different act.
Yeah, Local Government Act, yeah. Okay, so that one's nothing to see here. It's business as usual.
Absolutely,
It's just, again, probably addressing one of those recalcitrant or problem
Yeah.
councils that may have people within the elected body that didn't vote for the mayor, therefore don't see them
Yeah.
as the head of the the public spokesperson.
Yeah, and you think, I mean, this would have been really helpful in Townsville if, you know, they found that Troy Thompson couldn't share the meeting. You know, in some cases it might be better if the mayor doesn't have the confidence of the council. It's not clear why they should be the chairperson.
Yeah, yeah. Except the fact that the community put them in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a really important part of it.
Yeah.
I think, again, we talked about this last week. I thought it was terrible for the councillors to have a no confidence vote on a mayor, but that's from last week. So let's move on. The other one was, and this one is a little bit complex, I suppose, but it's the removal of low-level conduct regulation, which means that the councillor conduct that falls short of misconduct or corrupt conduct will no longer be assessed or actioned under the framework.
Yeah, which is a big part of all the complaints that have ever been lodged.
Yeah.
If you look at most complaint registers like ours, it's mostly this type of matter.
Yep. So when we talk about misconduct or corrupt conduct, that's an official. That's when there's a breach, isn't there? But when someone makes a complaint about a councillor, so what sort of complaints wouldn't be? It's normally those complaints where someone said something in the media or
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think of some local examples without being.
Let's say, for example, a councillor said about another councillor, why doesn't he just pick his rattle up off the floor?
That was the one I could think of, and I wasn't going to say it. But yeah, that's right. That's not misconduct.
Yeah.
That somehow that got viewed as unsuitable conduct, or which is very surprising.
The councillor, had to. I don't think I had to apologise, but they did say it was. It wasn't misconduct, but for the people who aren't listening, there was a councillor who got upset about something, and I suggested he pick up his rattle off the floor and get back to doing his job, which I thought was a legitimate suggestion, but it went to the tribunal and they determined that I was being not nice.
And if somebody said that in a meeting, I wouldn't say it was unsuitable conduct.
Yeah.
Just add this to the list of reasons I couldn't be on council.
But I tell you now, councillors have said so many bad things about me in public, in media, and I've had people contact me and say, do you want to make a complaint? Yeah. I had, representatives ring me and say, you should make a complaint. I'd say, absolutely not. Yeah. Because I got into politics because I love the robustness of it. I love that sandpaper. I love that edginess of it. And if someone's got a criticism about me, they should say it. I don't have an issue about it. Yeah. And I think, those sorts of comments. So from my perspective, it would be great if this gets rid of those issues which happens in councils, where a councillor doesn't like another councillor and they're forever looking for any single thing to pin them on. Yeah. And they're forever writing complaints, and it just builds up this complaint schedule, which takes up too much time for everyone and costs a lot of money. And I think it's probably a good outcome. What do you reckon?
As a ratepayer, that sounds like a waste of time to me. If it's small things like the rattle, are there certain things that would potentially get through that maybe should be disciplined though?
Yeah, I can think of some cases where like bullying, where we're just talking about councillor to councillor things. If they're like if a councillor said rude things about a member of the public. I mean, actually, I've had quite a lot of complaints that we've had to investigate about councillors when they're rude on Facebook, when they're rude to people, which, that's fine if we let it fly, but eventually there will be something. And this is the type of reform that'll go back and forward.
Yeah.
One thing that is certain is that it'll come back. At some point, there'll be people say that, the councillors are misbehaving and they need to be brought in line and we need to have some sort of conduct. I mean, the real losers in this are the lawyers. The amount of, because you send it out to an independent body to conduct the investigation. There's a lot of money across the state that goes to the investigators and lawyers in these matters.
Yeah, and to be clear, I am, on reflection on my conduct about the rattle, I do have some regrets. I did conflate two different terms. It should have been pick his dummy up. Yeah, and I said rattle. and I can understand why the community would have been concerned or lost about that. They thought maybe that I was losing my mind, but I certainly wasn't. Or maybe I was. All right, next one is unsuitable meeting conduct managed internally. Is that... So local governments will continue to deal with poor behaviour. So this is an extension or a limit to the next one. A poor behaviour of councils and local government meetings as unsuitable meeting conduct consistent with how Parliament deals with the behaviour of its members. So reading that, it seems like if this were a council meeting and Carly started flying off her handle, I would then say to the chair that that's unsuitable conduct and request for you to manage that or to deal with it under the standing orders. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So let's say, for example, that you and I are part of the same team, if there were teams, and...
You were clicky, you mean?
Yeah. So I said something inappropriate, and so you backed me, but when Carly says something
that you're a
inappropriate...
drongo because you said that?
Yeah, that would create issues.
Because it takes away independence, doesn't it? Which is something that they've really tried hard to address, is that independence of a...
So what's currently happening, like in that, if something like that happens, what's currently happening?
Well, it can be dealt with at the time, but they would also make a complaint to the OIA.
Okay, so they're taking that part away from it now, and they're just saying you need to deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be at the time or potentially at the next meeting. Yeah, which is what you could do. Again, it ties into the other one. I think it's a good step forward. It would be interesting to see whether or not there's going to be issues created from it. Anything else before we go on to the next issue?
No, I was just thinking that was like AFL. They don't send them off in AFL. They go to the tribunal and then they get suspended for other games. So sometimes you don't care if it's like grand final day. You don't care if you're going to be out for 3 weeks.
That's right. Yeah.
I was just thinking about that in the council.
So removal of councillor voting on conflict participation, and this is something that I 100% support. So what it means is removal of the requirement for non-conflicted councillors to vote on whether to allow a conflicted councillor to participate in the decision-making which is open to political manipulation. So
what currently happens?
Oh, you vote. So there's a number of things. If say if you have a conflict, you can just declare it and say, I'm going to leave the room. You can have a conflict and say, but I want to ask the room if I can stay. And then I would listen to that and say if the conflict, if they're saying my second cousin twice removed had a teacher whose husband, piano teacher, is put in for this contract, I would say, look, I'll move that councillor can stay in the room. But if they said, look, my dad's put in for this contract, but, he's really the best at this and I think I can stay and vote on it, I would recommend that the councillor leave the room. And then it'll be up to the councillors to vote.
So now it goes back to where it was before, is that you would declare a conflict and decide yourself whether or not you would stay in the room.
Which removes a bit of protection for that person, because if everyone else votes and then they're kind of in the clear.
Yeah, I'm saying, is it also a bit convenient as well at times if you don't want to have a strong position on something? No, because
if you stay in a room and you've stayed in a room when you weren't supposed to, that is misconduct and it can be investigated.
No, I mean the other way around. You're saying that you've got a conflict and that you're going to remove yourself from the room. Is that somewhat convenient sometimes?
Yeah, some people do that.
You don't want to have a strong opinion on maybe a controversial subject, and then that gives them the clear.
I've absolutely seen that happen, yeah.
But that won't change.
Creating a conflict. It's possible to create a conflict so you don't have to vote,
Have you ever done that?
No.
You heard it here. George is not admitting to doing that. Yep.
It's on the record.
Look, so I think that it's a complex issue because the idea of the council voting on it gives a protection to the councillor, because whether they stay in the room or not, it was determined, so it can't be misconduct unless there was important facts that were missed out in the actual decision-making process. Yeah. But now they're going to have to go back to making their own mind up.
Yeah, in practice, it could lead to more people leaving the room. Like I have a low threshold for leaving the room. I do have, like if say somebody helped me on my election and then they've come in and put a submission, I would say, no, I've got a conflict. So yeah, I think more people will conflict themselves out of the room because they don't have that protection of the councillors voting on it.
I often thought about that. Say you're anti-development. Shouldn't developers give money to people who are anti-development so they can't vote on their...
conflict amount. Yeah, you got to accept the money though. Yeah, yeah. And that's
Yeah.
illegal. I mean, that's not in here. I mean, that's one of the things that people thought might get reformed is that developers could donate again.
Yep. Oh, yeah, so developers can't. But at the time, if you didn't know someone was a developer or they became a developer afterwards, because in our communities, like you could be a developer. It's not like in Brisbane where, you know, the multi-billion-dollar companies, you know, people start somewhere and often in smaller communities they do that. Where are we up to?
The big one.
Yes, this is very interesting. So this is automatic removal from council upon nomination for state parliament. So this means that it provides for automatic removal of a councillor from office upon nomination as a candidate for election as a member of the Legislative Assembly, which means that if George, you decided that you were going to run for the state seat of Hervey Bay, you would have to resign from your office. Is that right?
Yep. And that used to be the case.
It used to be the case.
And I'm not running for the state seat of Hervey Bay.
Yeah.
But and I can give you a very
How
good
many times a week do you get asked?
a few times. But I can think of a good piece, and it used to be the case. It's changed back and forth. When it was changed to how it is now, it was when David Crisafulli was the local government minister. Before that, you did have to resign. So, for example, one of the candidates you beat in 2012, Jan Rowazinski, she was elected to the Hervey Bay City Council in 2004. And in order to be the Nationals candidate for Hervey Bay in 2006, she resigned her seat. So she resigned from the Hervey Bay City Council and then failed to get elected. And then in that by-election, Les Mucken was elected to the council.
Yeah, which...
Does that just stop people putting one each way? Is that what that's designed for?
Well, it's designed to make people take the office seriously, I suppose. It's designed to well, I mean, if we can weigh into what the motivations are, but it sort of dissuades some candidates from running.
Yeah.
But I mean, it talks a
Or
bit.
just like treating the council as a stepping stone.
Yeah, it's designed to stop. But I mean, people can still treat it as a stepping stone. You resign or you wait. And I mean, the added part of this now is that we have fixed terms.
Yep.
We only have fixed terms since that referendum in 2016, the 4-year terms. So now every 4 years, in March there's a council election, and then October, November there's a state election. So now it's probably not quite such a big issue. Nobody should be running and getting elected in March and then turning around and saying they're a candidate in October.
And I agree. While the state government term finishes in October and the local government term finishes in April or May, is it? April is
Well, the election's in March, the fourth Saturday or something like that.
So that's the time frame, which is a good time for someone to resign or not seek election at that and then go for state. My issue is that when there is a by-election, so halfway through somebody leaves state government, they decide to retire, something happens and the seat opens up. That's unexpected, and what then happens is that if someone from the local government wanted to run, it would automatically trigger 2 elections because you'd have the by-election for the state, and if they decide to run for that state, it would then be an automatic local government election. So that's 2 costs. Now, if that councillor, let's say 2 councillors decided to run, then that's two by-elections for a local council, and that by-election, only one person is going to get elected. So if neither of those 2 councillors got elected to the state seat, then there's 2 unnecessary elections that are occurring.
Yeah.
And despite the fact of whether or not, how the impact it has on the councillor, the impact it will definitely have on the community is that it'll cost more for by-elections.
And I think the by-elections is a special case. I mean, like all legislation now, they have to sort of kind of assess it against the Human Rights Act. And it talks about this because that the amendments remove a councillor's existing right under the legislation to return from compulsory leave and resume their responsibilities. The councillor's office is vacated. It is considered that the amendments are justified in order to ensure council stability, minimize disruption, and reduce operational impacts on the council, and their community of councillors running for state office. You know, that doesn't really make sense. I
No,
mean,
because
that-
wouldn't they be better off going on holidays
Yeah.
and then coming back
Yeah,
than
I mean,
just being gone forever?
yeah, I think there are very good reasons to have this, particularly for state reasons. It's just for the normal 4-year terms, just not how they're saying. It doesn't ensure council stability. It doesn't minimize disruption or reduce.
You could argue
operational
quite the
impacts.
opposite.
Yeah,
You
that's
could say
right.
because of these reasons, it does violate. And this is the absurdity is that every piece of legislation, when the bill gets written, they always reference the Human Rights Act and to make sure it's compliant. No, it's never non-compliant. They can never
Yeah,
go.
they can make arguments. Yeah.
It's ridiculous how they can squint their eyes and turn their and move the page away to make it match. To me, it doesn't. It does. It creates a disincentive for councillors who obviously have a passion for serving their community, have a passion for politics, and it is.
And some level of experience.
Yes. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, I don't know if there would be any other occupation that is legislated that you have to resign to run for parliament. There couldn't be another. There would be ways around with leave, and certainly there wouldn't be legislation that this type of
What if you're an employee for the state government?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
I'm sure they can take leave. Yeah. When I first got elected, I was an employee.
Okay,
But
that's leave, but
that's
they
also disrupting the...
Yeah.
So the legislation says that the moment you're elected, you lose your position.
Perhaps. I don't know. I know I certainly resigned. Certainly, state employees can definitely run. And I imagine in smaller councils, they don't have to resign. Smaller councils where it's not a full-time job. On the basis of sort of consistency, I agree with it. State MPs have to resign to run for council, though that doesn't happen very often. You couldn't imagine constitutionally. You couldn't make it for federal. They couldn't require a councillor to vacate their office to run for federal parliament.
I thought that was the case that they had to.
I can't see how you could.
Yeah, because it's. I thought.
Certainly, Belinda McNevin didn't in 2010.
Yeah, maybe it was just the state. We'll look into that.
I think constitutionally you couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking about the staff, what you were saying about the staff. And if there are senior level staff members in the government and they're taking leave to run, then isn't that also disruption?
Yeah, but it's also a part of democracy. Is that disruption's okay? Like elections are disruptive.
Oh, I'm going by the piece of
Yeah. But they're saying it's not disruptive.
paper.
Yeah, it's not disruptive. It's all good.
Yeah,
Nothing to see here.
Yeah, that you're making it less disruptive by causing the unnecessary by-elections.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not a fan of this at all. I think it's a silly.
Just because of the by-election side of it, or the 4-year, like.
I actually don't agree with the fact that it should be legislated that if you decide to run for office, that you should be there should be any deterrent or any penalty or impediment to do
For
that.
applying for another job.
Yeah.
Just generally.
To go and let the community decide, because sometimes there are factors that may warrant it, and I guess the argument could be then, well, if it does, then resign. But I just don't. The reason why I don't like it is because the only benefit I see is that it protects the current government. The current government wants to retain as many seats as possible, and the most effective way to do that is to dissuade people who are not
Already
there to run.
Yeah, and this is a major change of policy for the LNP. They'd be traditionally, whether Jeff Seeney, he went from Montrose to Parliament. That traditionally the LNP would be on the side of not making people resign, and it's Labor that's brought in the resignation. So it is very interesting that it's happened like this. Yeah.
Well, I guess the LNP couldn't get any more seats than they've already got, so they probably want to protect it a bit.
I mean, people will often do it voluntarily, like Campbell Newman. He resigned as Lord Mayor, and that wouldn't have caused a by-election. That would have gone straight to Graham Quirk because it would have been in the final year.
So what if how does it work if in the first, is it the first?
Yeah, I think, they're not changing that in this one. That was going to be the case, but then they amended it, that if it's in the first year, they were going to give it to the runner-up,
Second, yeah.
but they changed that.
So it doesn't.
Yeah,
That's not-
because there were a lot of concerns. Well, it was Pineapple in Rockhampton that caused the change.
That's right.
You know,
yes.
Rockhampton.
And if you look at the numbers from that Townsville
Yeah.
election, if you've got first guy on
Yeah.
60 and the next one on 13,
Yeah, and so what happened
you're
is
Stephen Bradbury. Get
in Rockhampton, Margaret Strello won, and she only had a nominal candidate, Pineapple, and nobody knows his real name. and so when she resigned because of conduct breach about Adani, he was automatically going to get elected, and it was at that case that the government changed that rule and caused a by-election, which then there were like 15 candidates and Tony Williams won.
Yep.
I bet
But when-
Pineapple was a bit upset about that.
Yeah, I think it was. But then if it's in the last year, like when Campbell Newman resigned, it's just appointed by the council, or when Darren Everard resigned.
Yep. Very good. All right. The other one is postal ballots. So,
Yeah, so this is about just applying to ECQ rather than through the minister.
so it's not really a big thing.
Yeah.
No big deal.
No.
What do you think about postal ballots?
Generally against. I think elections should be a carnival. It should be about turning up and taking a box and putting it in the receptacle.
Yep. You're a traditionalist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a purist too.
Conservative, dare I say.
Yeah. Yes. Conservative. Yeah, with a lowercase c.
Yeah. And what about you?
I'm a purist. I like election day.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think just generally this makes sense. The Electoral Commission of Queensland is independent. No, but there's never been anybody who said they're not independent. To have the process through them rather than through the minister.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, is that the letter that you get in your mailbox from, whoever's running saying, oh, hey, give us your thing
Yeah.
and then we'll put it in for you.
Yeah,
So
that-
that's gone now.
No, you would still get to. No, that's the in any normal election. There's postal voting.
Yeah,
So this is a
yeah.
full postal vote.
Yeah, okay.
This
Okay,
is
just
to,
for full.
like
Yeah.
say like the Townsville by-election or
Yeah.
elections in the North Burnett.
Yeah.
They're done fully postal.
Okay.
So this is about a council applying to go fully postal.
Yeah, okay.
Which means the candidates don't have to hand out how to vote cards. They don't have to get their family and friends to hand out how to vote
It's like
cards.
COVID again.
Yeah, that's right. It was a bit like COVID. That was a good election. Yeah, so this is
Fantastic.
about how, and there are councils that want to do this because it does help incumbents too. It's much harder to campaign as an outsider if you're not actually meeting the voters.
And yeah, you haven't
90
had that
seconds,
face time
yeah.
on the news or in the newspaper or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh yeah, you could still get that, but you just wouldn't be. It helps.
You're not as
Yeah,
recognised.
and it helps if you're giving somebody a how to vote card minutes before they vote, which you lose that opportunity
Yeah.
if it's a postal vote. But the incumbents have the name recognition.
Yeah.
So going to my favourite one of all the amendments, the smallest but the best, and that's where the candidate privacy and authorisation details. So at the moment on a call flute or any election material, it says written and authorised by George Seymour, and then we'll have
Yeah.
his residential address, or you'll ask somebody else to give their residential
Yeah.
address. Now you can have a PO box.
Yeah, this will be good for Australia Post. They will sell more post boxes. This is a good idea. That having to put your home address or passing the problem on to a friend by putting their home address on the bottom is it's 19th century, it's 18th century. It makes no sense. Like there's very little good reason why somebody would see your home address on the bottom of a material and then go there. It is a real disincentive for new candidates when the first thing they realize is that everything they print out is the home address and that there's some sort of
I agree.
yeah, like why would people
We're
come
living
to
in
my
the
home
age of
address?
privacy concerns and
Yeah.
everything.
And
Totally
safety.
agree.
Yeah,
Yep. So I'm surprised that that's been in there for so long.
yeah,
I've often wondered about it.
yeah.
Yep.
And I mean the state. It's partly in there because the state sets the rules, and no state MP from a major party has ever had to do it because there's always, for Labor it's 16 Peel
Yeah.
Street, South Brisbane. For the LNP, I think it's somewhere in Spring Hill or something.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, they're all the ones that I think were relevant. Is there anything
So
there?
you're going to move house now?
I have a PO box I can use. Yeah. So yeah.
George, is there anything else you think that is a worthy mention from your reading?
I think that covers a lot of it. There was a bit about competitive neutrality complaints and the red tape reduction.
How boring.
Yeah, one of the red tape things is during the caretaker period. So there's the caretaker period of the last month or 6 weeks of an election term about policy decisions. It allows some policy decisions regarding disaster recovery. So specifically, a general approval to make major policy decisions about disaster recovery funding arrangements during the caretaker period. So that arose.
So time sensitive.
Yeah,
issues.
yeah. So like during this arose during Cyclone Jasper. So the caretaker period is good. You shouldn't be able to have incumbents making major policy announcements 48 hours before getting voted out. But it shouldn't impact upon
The hospital pass.
Yeah, it shouldn't create issues for the disaster response.
Yeah, so all in all, what's your thoughts on the amendments?
Good, I support them. Yeah.
Yep. Other than the sacking, there's a few there. I think there's a few there that are a little bit.
Do you wonder why the actual one about, because there's the mayor's automatically the spokesperson.
Yep.
The chairperson, do you mean?
No, the spokesperson.
In media for council.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so
okay,
that's come up because of Ipswich. Because Ipswich, some of all these stuff, a lot of it comes up from examples. Like at the moment, it's Ipswich and Redlands. So there was a majority of councillors that were going to put forward a motion that the chairs of specific subcommittees become the spokespersons, and that would have gone through, I think, except for the mayor raised the issue in the media and got a lot of attention, so they pulled out. But it used to be the case that the mayor was automatically a spokesperson, and they've made that explicit in here. But I'm surprised. Did you see where they're making the mayor automatically the disaster?
I thought it was for all.
It applies to it.
For chairs, so there's. I thought it was for all chair positions that are legislators. So there's.
Yeah. So that would cover the local disaster management.
Yeah, because
that's
you have to have a chair for that.
Yeah. And that is the Ipswich example too. I'm just surprised they don't make that explicit, because that was a real big issue where the councillors in Ipswich very specifically did not elect the mayor as the chair of the local disaster management group, but elected one of their, a councillor.
Why?
Well, they've said that because they didn't have confidence in her. That's been about handling of previous disasters. Yeah. Which is interesting. I don't have any view on how she handled previous disasters, but whether it should, if a council determined that they didn't have confidence in the mayor, if they should be able to take away some of the roles like that.
Which I disagree with.
Yeah.
Well, if everyone voted her in, and on the expectation that she would be the spokesperson
and the chairperson of the local disaster management
all
group,
of those things, then
the fundamental principles
that's going against what the voters want.
Yeah, well, the fundamental principles of a local government is that they'll look after water, they'll look after your
Rubbish,
your rubbish, your sewage. They'll be responsible for local disaster management issues, and normally there's a chair and a deputy chair, and if somebody's got an expertise in that space, you still have the chair, which is the mayor, and the deputy will come
their
in
advisor.
as an expert in the space. And it doesn't have to be the deputy mayor. It can be someone. I was the deputy chair of the local disaster management. Even after I finished my role as deputy mayor, I stayed on because that was my experience. That's what I knew. And so it's good to have that continuity, but absolutely the mayor should be the person responsible.
Yeah, well, if I'm going in and voting for the mayor and then some other councillor or goes in and gets voted in to take that spot, I'd be a bit miffed.
Yeah.
The other interesting bit is the mandatory candidate training, which is just this lots of videos, lots of clicking, lots of answering. And this is something that's been brought in the past because obviously people said, councillors came in, they didn't know what they're doing. They're going straight into the budget process. They're getting in trouble with this. So anybody, in terms of nominating, for your nomination to be accepted by ECQ, you have to have completed all the modules of the mandatory training, which is actually quite substantial in terms of time commitment. And so under these changes, that'll still exist for new candidates, but not for incumbents.
Oh, so you had to do that every year,
Yeah.
even though you've been a mayor for however long
That's
and you
right,
know what's
yeah.
going on. Rightio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's now only new information. When there's something that changes and they have those updates, everyone goes. But for the mandatory start of term,
New candidate.
new candidate information, you don't have to go, which I think is good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Except it's also part of the process where when you're in that meeting, it's the first time you spend a long
Oh, no,
time.
I'm talking about in terms of nominating. So in terms of
When you're running.
Yeah, to actually nominate, you have to have completed the training for your nomination to be accepted.
I read that to be that the mandatory training once elected.
No, it's the training to be a successful nomination.
Because there is two different types of training, isn't it? There's the training, mandatory
After
training.
you
Yeah, when you
voted
come
in.
in, yeah,
Yeah.
that'll still be the whole group together.
I
yeah.
would hope so.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it's mandatory candidate training. It's not councillor training.
So moving on to our next podcast, we'll be talking about the Torquay Caravan Park, which surprisingly has been very it's engaged the community quite substantially, George.
Yeah, I even got a question on it at the Chamber of Commerce. I spoke with the Chamber of Commerce this week. It has been. It's been 4,385 completed submissions. There are a lot more people. Over 5,000 started to and didn't complete the survey. Was an interesting survey. Last time we had a different survey about cemeteries. We had a 2-minute survey, a 5-minute, a 10-minute. This time we just offered the half-hour one. And it was very
Half
interesting.
hour.
It could take that long. I think some people took that long on it because it asks questions, not just ticking boxes. But I think it's been good to get that amount of consultation.
Yep. Well, let's talk about that next time, guys.
It's good to see people involved.
Yeah, and it's a central part of the Esplanade. I think it'll. So the decision comes to the council on the 10th of December. We've moved the council meeting from Maryborough to Harvey Bay for it.
Awesome. And how are you voting? No, just kidding. We won't ask that question.
I'm voting to keep the caravan park.
Oh, well, okay. We will ask that question. I think everyone knew that anyway.
Yeah.
George, thank you for joining us.
Thanks.
Carly, and we'll see you. We hope next week, but we'll see how people are going for time.